Hello there and welcome back to Forza Top Gear Lap's Rivals, the spin-off where we pit a couple of cars with common ground and close PIs against each other to see which one comes out on top. Today we take a look at the final generations of two saloon cars that defined Australia for over 40 years. Firstly, the Ford Falcon. The Falcon was introduced in 1960 in both America and Australia, with the Aussies electing to build the Falcon over importing British Fords as they had done previously. The Falcon needed to succeed, with the GM-owned Holden earning substantial market share in the 1950s. However, cracks quickly began to show, with the Falcon struggling to remain durable in the tough conditions of the outback. Despite some modifications already have taken place, over the years Ford Australia would eventually make more significant modifications, resulting in a more reliable car at the cost of being less similar to its American companion. In 1970, Ford America dropped the Falcon, but Ford Australia carried on with the car, taking the Falcon through 7 generations, changing and altering the car as they went on to suit the needs of the Australian people, while fighting off Holden's own efforts. This Falcon is the final generation of the car. Named the FGX, it was a facelifted version of the FG. Despite this, the car received some substantial changes both externally and in terms of drivetrain. The Falcon remained rear-wheel drive, with the choice of 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder and 8-cylinder engine options. This car is an XR8, the highest level of the FGX, featuring a 5-litre Coyote V8, the option of a 6-speed automatic or manual transmissions, and a healthy equipment list such as Wi-Fi connectivity and the Ford Sync infotainment. Despite this new technology and the newer, more uniform Ford styling, the Falcon still kept its old-school charm. However, this wasn't enough, with the Falcon being controversially phased out, with the European Mondeo and American Mustang acting as indirect replacements after a 56-year production run, and becoming inextricably linked with Australia's heritage. Next, the Holden Commodore. The Commodore was introduced in 1978 to replace the long-standing and highly successful Kingswood series, with fuel economy and size being key issues. They decided to form their own model out of 2 Opel products, with the Opel Record body shell and the front end of the Opel Senator forming the Commodore. Early signs, however, were not good. In testing, the car broke in half, and in the end only 35% of parts would be shared with Opel's version of the Commodore. In the first year, unreliability was present, and the lack of budget for Holden meant engines would prove sluggish and uneconomical. However, by the mid-1980s, things would start looking up for the Commodore, with sales and reliability on the up. This Commodore would go through 4 generations and many more revisions, resulting in this particular generation, named VF. This Commodore offered V6 and V8 engines with 6-speed manual and automatic transmissions, putting power to the rear wheels. Eagle-eyed viewers may notice the lack of a Holden badge. That is because this is actually a Chevrolet SS, the American market version, introduced in 2014 as Chevrolet's first rear-wheel drive V8 sedan in 18 years, and filling the gap left by the also Commodore Pontiac G8. Powered by the LS3 V8 engine, and once again with the options of manual and automatic transmissions, despite glowing reviews, the SS struggled with a lack of marketing and low public interest. The SS was dropped in 2017 along with the VF Commodore in Australia. While technically the Commodore lived on as a rebadged Opel insignia, reaction had not been good, and after limping on for a few years, the Commodore was finally put to rest in 2019. Despite this, the Commodore is loved throughout the world due to several export versions such as the SS, cementing its place in both Australian car culture and car culture in general. So there you have it, 2 unfortunate victims of the conservatism of car manufacturers and the collapse of Australian car production. Still, at least we have several years of cars to look back on, but now it's time to settle the battle of Falcon versus Commodore once, and especially now, forever. On to the laps then, and we begin with the Ford Falcon XR8, 449 horsepower, 420 foot-pound torque, 4,096 pounds of weight. On paper, this should be quite a bit quicker. It's a fair bit more powerful than the Chevy SS, got a slight amount more torque, and it's only slightly heavier. However, the Falcon was an experience. We'll get into that in a second. Firstly, I think the Falcon is my favourite in terms of styling. I love the way this Falcon looks. In my opinion, this might be one of the best looking Ford products of the last so many years. It's a really excellent looking car, the Falcon. It's almost a shame that they never really got it to live on with its styling all that long. It only lasted about 2-3 years. Anyways, the Falcon, how does it drive? This is one of those weird situations where I think Forza has messed up the handling on this car horrifically. It's awful. It understeers ridiculously. The differential feels like it's come from a 1960s base model Holden. It feels ridiculously heavy, which I guess is somewhat accurate because it does weigh 4,000 pounds. But there is something majorly jacked with the handling on this vehicle. It is appalling. Drive it for yourself, you'll see what I mean. You can just see it when it, like for example, when it comes to the second to last corner. There is something horribly wrong with the way this car drives stock. I do not recommend it in the slightest. So, let's hope the next car is much better. The 2014 Chevrolet SS, 415 horsepower, 415 foot-pound torque, 3,975 pounds of weight. As I said, the Falcon is running about 30 more horsepower. This weighs about 100 pounds less than that does, but, you know, the power should be more of an offset, technically. The SS, I do actually kind of like the SS. It's a bit of a shame when it comes to this car and how unsuccessful it was in other markets, but that's just the way it works. Of course, we got it as the Vauxhall VXR8. I actually saw one the other day, which is one of the first times I've seen one for a while. A little bit of a shame, but it's kind of understandable why these cars don't really work in Europe. America, I don't quite know what happened. Again, lack of marketing and I guess lack of enthusiasm from the public. As far as this one goes to drive, it's actually pretty decent. For a big four-door saloon muscle car, you don't really expect these to drive particularly well. Cadillac CTS-V Coupe, stuff like that. But this one actually isn't bad. The turn-in on it is actually really quite decent. The oversteer, there is a slight amount of that. Rear tyres could be a little bit bigger, but there's nothing you can really, you know, you could get rid of that with tuning quite easily. Overall, yeah, the SS is just quite a decent handling muscle car overall. Nothing spectacular, but certainly not a bad car. I would say this is more pleasant to drive than the Holden badged equivalent, which has about 600 horsepower, but I guess that's pretty much a given considering that has 600 horsepower and this does not. Unsurprisingly then, the quickest car today was the Chevy SS, going to 186 place, 123.549, goes in between a Maserati Ghibli and a Jeep Trailcat. Slightly quicker than a Ford Mustang, a little bit down on a Holden HSV W427, although do bear in mind I think that one has about 500 horsepower. The Chevy SS does have a better chassis. In 202nd place we find the awful Ford Falcon XR8 with 124.562, going in between a Levante and a 1 Series M Coupe. It's a bit quicker than a Jaguar XES, Kia Stinger. It does interestingly lose out to the FPV Pursuit U, and that's just a testament to how badly the XR8 handles. I don't know what's wrong with that car. Something has gone horribly wrong, I feel, because I don't think it should handle that badly. If anything, I'd expect it to drive quite a bit like a Mustang. If, you know, the game was accurate more so, I would expect a time more up towards the higher 123s. I don't know if it would have beat the SS, but it certainly would have been a sort of around the 2015 Mustang, somewhere around at that sort of time. So in terms of this comparison, I mean, there is an obvious victor. It is the Chevrolet SS. It is the most drivable of the two cars. Again, I don't know what's wrong with the Falcon. It's a shame as well because I really like that generation of Falcon. I think it's a fantastic looking car. Does pretty much everything well, but I mean, in terms of this comparison, I can't do anything other than throw it over to the Chevrolet SS. Still, if you are a Ford Falcon person, it's not like there's any shortage of Falcons and Commodores in this game that you can compare to one another, and of course we have done in previous episodes when we've done the bulk bits. But in terms of this final generation, I guess we have to give it to the Holden Commodore, although not the Opel Insignia version. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching this edition of Forza Top Gear Laps Rivals. Apologies on how long this has taken to come out. It really has taken a long while because I just kept pushing it back and back and back. So, as a result, this becomes the last video of 2019. Thank you all very much for watching. Hopefully, we can be more consistent in this series in 2020, especially if we get a new Forza Motorsport game, which should get us way back on track. But either way, thank you all very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your decade, and if you're watching this in the next decade, then hi, Happy New Year. Yeah, until next time, farewell.
You know the sorrow that my heart holds in, knowing just where my hopes and dreams are going. I won't let you break. Got up in a wall that you are not part of. Eyes on the slit of your